to Knitting Spring Podcast. My name is Tonya, and this is my first podcast in about 2 years. I had to take a bit of a sabbatical for back surgery, so that's why I've been gone so long. I'll go through some introductions about myself, and I will tell you why I was gone, and then we'll go into knitting and some other things, but I'll put a time stamp up in case you're not interested of why I was gone, so let's get started. My name's Tonya. I'm coming to you from Manhattan, New York, and I started podcasting in 2015, I believe. I did that for about 20 or so episodes, and then during the latter part of that, I started having back problems. And the problems that I had became such that I had to stop podcasting, and it really affected my daily life. So once I stopped podcasting, I was going to the doctors a lot. I was getting treatments for different things to try to see if things would work before surgery was an option, and I got shots and all kinds of different things, physical therapy, chiropractor, etc. So that winter of 2016, 2017, I became really ill twice within a month, and at that point it was really hard. It was getting really hard for me to get to work. I stopped cooking. I stopped doing a whole bunch of things just because I was in so much pain, and it was hard to move. Just a whole slew of things. If you've ever had any kind of serious back problem, I was having trouble walking. Honestly, the only thing that felt comfortable was laying down with my knees bent, and that's not a permanent solution. I'm not that old, so and I still need to work, and I have things I want to do in life and stuff like that. So after I got sick, really sick, I was sick for like 2 weeks around Christmas that year. I came back for 2 weeks, I was fine, and then I got really sick again like at the end of January. When that came around, I was like, this is really affecting my immune system, and the pain was such that I was in constant stress. My back was completely seized up from my base of my skull all the way down to the tops of my thighs. So I approached my neurologist. I sat down with him, and we went through all the different things that I had tried before surgery, and we decided that surgery was the way to go for me. So over the next 2-3 weeks, I put in notice at work. I was on short-term leave for about 3.5 months. I went and got a surgeon, and there's a lot of stuff you have to do before you can even get surgery. You have to make sure that you're healthy enough to get surgery. So I had to go through all those different tests and various doctors, and then I had surgery, and that's a whole new experience unto itself. I'd never had surgery before, and that first week after you have surgery it's a doozy. And I didn't have laparoscopic surgery. I had to have full-on surgery for my back. So the pain after surgery was still had some, but I could tell that the surgery was going to be successful. The pain before surgery was nothing was helping. Not pain medication, not going to the chiropractor, nothing. I was just in constant pain. And anybody who's had nerve pain, it is the oddest pain. It's hard to describe unless you have it. It's just this deep pain that just eventually, after so long, it's all you can feel in your body. There's no fun. There's just nothing. So the surgery was very successful. And then I spent the next 2.5 months recovering, getting on my, just learning to do stuff, you have to, I couldn't move a lot for a couple weeks because I had back surgery. You know, for 3 months I couldn't lift anything more than a gallon of milk. I wasn't allowed to bend over, so my movements were restricted. When I went for my final I went for like a month after surgery, and then I went for 2 months after surgery, and then I ended up going for 6 months, and then I had my year review last March. So it took me a long time to even feel like, it probably took me 6 months to feel like I felt better, but I was still getting really tired, and, you know, I didn't really, you know, I would do some things, but I still wasn't doing a lot. And so it was probably like 6 months later, maybe 8, that I actually started feeling like I'm really getting better. And that was probably around Christmas last year. And so since then, so this year has really been much better. I mean, I've had to learn to modify how I live. You know, I can't do a lot of, you know, I'm never going to run again. You know, not like I was a big runner before, but, you know, things like that. I can't really lift a lot anymore. I'll always have chronic pain. It was the type of situation with my nerves that there was some nerve damage, but it is manageable. I go to a pain doctor once a month, and my pain is manageable. So I'm not in pain anymore. Every once in a while, certain weather will make the pain break through the medicine, or if I can tell if I do too much, or if I'm not wearing the right shoes, or if I've slept wrong. But those don't occur definitely as much as they did even 9 months ago. So I'm doing much better. I felt like I was ready to podcast. I've really missed podcasting. I have been thinking about this for like the last probably good 2-3 months. Kristen from the Orgasm Podcast and I get together about once a month, and we've been chatting about it. And I wrote to her this week telling me to, you know, don't let this weekend get away. And, you know, she's like, strike while the iron's hot. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm really glad to be doing this again. I've missed participating in the community. I've really enjoyed this community. Knitting is definitely one of the things that got me through that rough patch with my back. There were many things that I could not do, including sometimes even listen to a book, let alone focus on a page to read a book. So knitting podcasts and, you know, movies and Netflix, but really knitting podcasts and knitting really helped me feel connected, and felt like I wasn't just, because once you're in that kind of pain and stuff, you just feel like a lump, and all you want to do is sleep, and it really gets you down, and you just wonder if you're ever going to feel better again. And so nothing like the knitting community is just, you know, such a wonderful place to go to connect, to put a smile on your face, and all those wonderful podcasters out there that do this all the time. And I understand why certain people have to take breaks. I saw Laura from Jinx Yarn, who's no longer dying. I couldn't sympathize or empathize more with her. I totally understand health reasons of why you have to quit doing something and doing something that's the best for you. I really enjoy her podcast. I hope she keeps podcasting, but I understand if it's something that is no longer a part of her, you know, daily routine, or weekly, monthly, whatever routine. And then, yeah, so there's nothing else like the knitting community. It's really true. There are so much wonderful people, and it's such a magical place where we all come from somewhere different. You know, there's some of us, you know, maybe live close to each other, or, you know, have similar jobs or something, but really the breadth of the knitting community is wonderful, and the people that it brings to it are just wonderful, joyous, and caring and lovely people to talk to, listen to, watch, hear about what they're doing, especially those of us who, anybody in their immediate family isn't really into this, or somebody that they interact with every day. Being part of the knitting community and sharing in that joy of yarn and fiber and just putting that stitch by stitch together and creating something that we do with our hands. And I love that knitting is creative. So many people think they're not creative, which I don't agree with at all. I am an artist. I get paid my job. I do graphics, illustration, rendering, video editing at my job. So I draw and do Photoshop and InDesign, Illustrator every day at my job. And somebody who's gone to art school, you don't have to go to art school. You don't have to do anything to be creative. I think everybody is creative in their own voice. And that's what you have to remember, is that everybody's voice is important. Everybody creates in their own way. Everybody has their own imagination. And that's one of the things I think that's great about knitting, is that it allows people to celebrate that about themselves. And I love that. I went to art school and I love art and I love anything creative. And I love the joy that knitting brings. And when someone thinks that they're not creative, they say, look at this, look what I made, you know. Even scientists, if you say you're left brain, even scientists need to be imaginative. That's how we get these new inventions. They have to imagine something new, a new hypothesis. So it's not just traditional art fields that create. It's everybody who creates, who comes up with a new idea. All right, I'll get off that soapbox. So I didn't say where you could find me. I have, there's 3 places that you can find me here on YouTube. I don't do iTunes, so here on YouTube. Please subscribe if you like hanging out with me. If you don't, that's okay. Also, I am cheekiemunkie on Ravelry. I am cheekiemunkie1 on Instagram. I am cheekiemunkie on Goodreads. And then you can go to my website, knittingspring.com, and find show notes. And I put links in Ravelry, and I will create Ravelry threads for each episode. You can also contact me at Tonya, Tonya, at knittingspring.com. That's an email that'll pop up on my phone that I will see. I'm not a big social media person. Anybody who's followed me before, I love doing this and I love being in touch, but I'm very, when I come home, most often I'll do some things like once or twice, and then, usually I just put something up if I have something to say, and I'll go through and like stuff, but I'm terrible on Ravelry boards. I like to introduce myself and be a part of groups and listen to all the different podcasts that I've been listening to. But definitely the best way to get in touch with me is either write a comment in the YouTube comment threads, something in the episode thread, or email me again at Tonya@knittingspring.com. Sorry, my TV was on pause. And I'm turning it off. There we go. Okay, so let's get into the knitting. Normally I won't have that big long speech before we get into my knitting. I will leave that towards the end. You can see some things have changed in my apartment. Since the last time I podcasted, I had my apartment painted. It's the camera, it's a little bit darker than what you see, but that's pretty much it. I really wanted a cozy feel in my bedroom. My apartment is definitely my sanctuary. It's a place where I come and be quiet. It's just, when I want to do something or I want to see people, I have like one person over at a time if I have people over, but most often I will go somewhere to hang out with people. So, and you can tell I don't have a big apartment, so This is really a place that means a lot to me. It means a place where I'm creative. I try not to bring work home, etc. here. So I'm just looking at some things of what I'm doing. So I'm going to start in with what I've finished. Not everything I finished since I've been away, but some things that I finished since I think maybe June or July. I'm not a fast knitter, so it won't be a whole ton. The most latest thing that I finished are these Modern Romance vanilla socks. The yarn is Nomadic Yarns, and it is a striping yarn. It's not one of her Harry Potter colorways, although I plan on collecting all of those. But I am also trying to knit from stash this year as well. That's part of my stash right back there. It's the stuff I want to knit with right away, and then I have a deeper stash that I keep in plastic bags and totes and things like that that I go to if I want to pull something out. But those are my, like, you know, this is what I want to knit with right away, and just, you know, it's nice to look at. So these are, I've developed a recipe for myself. I don't know if you can tell on this, but I have high arches and I have a high instep. So you can just see my bone goes like, you can just see the steep plane of the bone of my foot way it goes up to my ankle. So between the top of my foot where my ankle joins and my bottom of my heel is quite deep. So what I can tell you what I do, and this is what I've developed over the last couple of years that I've been knitting socks. Anybody who hasn't knit socks and wonders how to get started, this is what I did. I started out with a 64-inch cast round sock, and I've always done toe up. Toe up just makes more sense to me logically in my brain. That's the only reason I do toe up, and well, not the only reason. I really like that the sock is completely seam free. There is no Kitchener-ing, nothing. It's a seam free sock. Although I know Kitchener makes it seam free, but so I use a Turkish cast on, and then I use it. It's in my Ravelry page, all the different patterns that I reference, but I do the seam free rounded toe up toe, and then so I cast on 12 to 14 stitches, whatever I tend to remember at the time. So it's either 12 or 14. And then I cast, then I go out. And that rounded toe, what it does to help it make it more round is you don't increase on every outside row. You're alternating between the first, you knit a stitch, increase, and then you do it on the other side, and you go around and you do your increases. Then on the next round, you don't knit all the way around. You increase on the third, after the third stitch. So for a while, you do like, I think 8 increases on every round, which makes it more round. And then you'll do one that you just knit around, and then you'll go through your increases again until I get to a 64-inch stitch sock. Now I knit my socks on 2 circular needles. And one of the reasons, again, that just made more sense when I was learning to knit socks. It helped me know which was the back and the front. I tried knitting on double points, and I kept getting confused. And then I saw, I think it was Knitting Socks 2 at a Time, that toe up book, where she's like, these are different ways you can use needles. And one of them was 2 circulars. Well, that made sense for me. Well, after developing my recipe, using US 1s, I was getting too loose of a gauge, and then 0s I was having to increase for the gusset too much. So actually I was talking to Mina from the Knitting Expat podcast, and she suggested using a 0 for the foot of the sock, which will give it a tighter gauge, and a 1 for the top. So that's what I do. I use a 0 on the bottom of my sock, and I use a 1 on the top of my sock. I use, since I'm using I use 2 different needles. I use Chow Goose red lace 0s, US 0s, which I believe is a 2.0 millimeter needle for the bottom of the sock. because it has a nice, I really like the point of that. And when you're working, for me, when I'm working on the heel, it's a better needle for putting the heel together. And then I use Hiya sharps for the top of the sock. And so I wear a size between a 9 and a 9.5. It depends on the shoemaker. Women's shoe. In Birkenstocks, it's a 40. I love Birkenstocks. I've been a Birkenstock lover forever, but let me tell you, those were like the best things that I ever owned when I found out I had back problems, and they really are magic shoes. So I knit up into, I use the sock ruler. I knit up until I get to 5 3/4. And the reason I use the sock ruler is because I found that every different weight of yarn, I don't have to worry about gauge in the row gauge, because when it measures 5 3/4, I know to start increasing. And so I only increase 3 stitches on the top of my sock, but at that point I'll start at 5 3/4. I start increasing on the top and the bottom of the sock, and I do 3 increase rounds on the top. Now on the bottom, I increase until I get to 54 stitches. And then I use a combination of the OMG Heel by Megan Williams and the Sockmaticians Toe Up sock by, I think his name's Nathan. I can't remember his last name, but everybody's heard of him. And his pattern's linked on my this sock page. And I think I wrote all my details down on that page as well. And then I do my, for this I made sure that I was stopping and starting on different, to get the stripes to work out that way. I just figured it out. Don't ask me how I figured it out, but I figured it out, and then I just mimicked it on the second sock so that the stripes would meet up when I joined in the round again. And then I go up, and I get about 14 to 16 gusset stitches going up. And now I only like shorty socks. There's only 2 types of socks that I wore even when I was buying commercial socks. And I still have commercial socks because in the winter I need to wear knee socks when it's really cold. So I either wear shorty socks, they only go to the ankle, or really small petty socks that go to the bottom of your ankle. Those are the only 2 types of socks I wear there, or the knee socks. It drives me crazy for the sock to stop anywhere else on my leg. I'll just never wear it. I just know that about myself. So this is actually the longest leg part of a sock that I've ever knit. It's just because I wanted all of the stripes. So it covers up to just above my ankle bone. And this will be the longest sock you'll ever see, unless I knit a pair of knee socks for myself, which I don't plan on doing anytime soon. I will be buying commercial knee socks for a while because I'm a really slow sock knitter, and I'd rather have some socks that I can wear in my drawer right away and just make some shorty socks. And I'd like to have, before I even start thinking about making a knee sock for myself, I'd like to have 14 or 15 in my drawer, and I think this makes 8 or 9 pairs of socks for me. But I really like the recipe that I've come up with. I really like how I knit my socks. They fit me really well, and the only way I got to this fit was trial and error. I probably knit 3 or 4 socks. The very first pair of socks I knit for myself, I can't wear. I gave them away because, again, I have a high instep and it's just too tight. So then I started adding more gussets, but it was probably like 3 or 4 socks before I nailed this recipe down, just so you know how long it took me to learn my own recipe and how to fit my foot. I didn't have to go through that much for a sweater. I think socks are the hardest fitted item thing that you will ever knit for yourself, just because there's so much to a foot that you have to take in consideration. But once you get your recipe, but for other people I knit for, I didn't have to do that. The OMG heel works really good for everybody else I knit for, and it was just my high instep that I had to fit. And plus I can customize my own foot because I obviously always have it on me, so I can go through that much. The other pair of socks I have, that I finished recently is the Hermione's Everyday Sock. And this is the pattern's by Erica Luder, I believe. And this is, I don't know if this was this is a homespun house, and the sock colorway is called Always. I believe this was a Harry Potter Club colorway, I believe, because their charm came with it. And I've been a part of Molly's Harry Potter sock club for a very long time. Believe it or not, I am staying away from buying a lot of yarn this year. I have only bought 3 skeins of yarn this year, which you know, medical bills and being out of work, and you know, even though you have disability and stuff, but I've really taken. But I think it's a good thing that I'm taking a step back from buying so much yarn, because I have so much yarn that I love that I was just not hoarding, but putting in stash. And I don't knit fast enough to get through 20 skeins a year, or at least 20 different colorways a year. Maybe, you know, 20 skeins when you consider, you know, a sweater or something, you know, because that takes like 2 or 3 skeins for a sweater. For a short sleeve sweater, it's like 2.5, 3 skeins of fingering weight for me. But so I've really been using stash yarn this year, and I couldn't be happier about it. And Jasmine from the Knitmore Girls is always like, you know, your stash is there when you need it, and I'm really glad I have the healthy stash that I have, and I can go shopping and stuff. And the few things that I did buy this year, I'm happy that I got them, but they're, you know, just nice little, well, they were kind of birthday gifts to myself that I got for myself in September. And so yeah, this was, I believe, a colorway, and I love this colorway. I love the yarn. I love how it knit up. I used my vanilla sock recipe, and I put on the Hermione's Everyday pattern on top of it, and I cannot wait to wear these. It has not been cool enough in New York, at least for me. I don't enjoy super hot weather, and I get overheated easily, so I'm thinking within the next 2 weeks I'll be able to start wearing my socks again. Another reason I'm not worried about getting too many socks, you know, I would love to have 30 pairs of hand-knitted socks, and I'm sure one day I'll get there. But when I come home, I don't wear socks. I wear house shoes without socks. I've always been that way. I've been sort of a barefoot kind of person, and as much as I love my hand-knit socks and I love wearing them outside of the house, from probably definitely mid-May to definitely October, I never wear socks. But I really enjoy the socks that I've made, and they bring a lot of joy, and I love wearing them. So those are my socks, and then I've made a few sweaters this year. I'll do the first one I did this year, and this is more of a tunic. This is, and I've posted this on Instagram way back, I think in February, and this is, hold on, let me turn on my iPad. I have usually I type all my show notes out, but I didn't type everything down on my projects. I called this the Petit Four tunic because I made it out of Petit Four yarn by Cat's Kettle, who's no longer dying, but this was her Petit Four colorway. And this pattern, it's meant for a tee, but I turned it into a tunic. It was called the Linum Tee by Bristol Ivy. And it was knit from the bottom up, and I had 3 skeins of this, and I knew in a tee I would not be using up all the yarn, and I really wanted to use up all this yarn. It is beautifully soft. It was absolutely delightful to knit, and I've probably worn this, I bet you a dozen times since I finished it. I couldn't wear it over the summer, but I wore it a lot last spring, and I wore it already once this month. And I just put you can see that this is a mesh section, and you can see through it. I don't know if you can see my hand through it, but you can see through it. So I put on a black tank, pair of leggings, and I plopped this over it, and it is the most comfortable thing. I just love wearing it. They are cap sleeves, so the sleeve's a little bit shorter than what I have on that I'm wearing today. This is a really short sleeve dress, but they come to about here, and it just sits really lovely across the collarbone area of your neck, and it goes down the back. So the way, trying to see how this fits, this is the back of it, and it's got an asymmetric pattern, which it's just been really a wonderful knit. I couldn't recommend it more. I really enjoy wearing it. It's very comfortable. It probably has waist shaping and stuff in there, but I am a very H-shape body type, meaning I go like this. It doesn't matter how much I weigh. My waist never goes differentiates from my bust or my hips more than 2 or 3 inches. So I am like straight down. So I rarely put waist shaping in garments because my body just doesn't require it. So most of the stuff I make is pretty much straight down. If I'm sewing a garment, it's a little bit different depending on the type. If it's a woven fabric, then I will inch that in a little bit. Otherwise, it becomes the, woven fabric doesn't bend or give. So a knit fabric will go in those few inches and create that because it's adjustable, whereas a woven won't. So that's why I don't put in waist shaping in my sweaters. I did once on a sweater I did when I first did it, and it fits fine, but it's not necessary. It's just not something that I need to do, and I don't have a really big bust either, so most of my garments are pretty much knitted straight from the bust to, now it depends on how much, because I like my sweaters to go to mid-hip, and depends on how much ribbing there is in the hip area. There's a lot of ribbing in the hip area, then I'll go out a little bit because I don't want that ribbing to stretch too much because it's normally going to come in. Or what I saw somebody else say is not to go down those 2 needle sizes and just knit your ribbing out of your body needle. So the next time I have a lot of ribbing, I'm going to try that rather than increasing out for the hips, so that I don't have any problems with that, but it's just something I'd like to try. I really, excuse me, I'm sorry about this today. I'm not used to talking or sitting in front of a camera for a real long time. And if this is a little stream of consciousness and a really long podcast, I apologize. I feel like I have a lot to catch up on with you guys and talk about. So the next sweater I want to show you, and it's black, so you're not going to be, I don't know how much detail you're going to see, probably as much as you can see in my dress I have on. Believe it or not, it's there's a slight ribbing to this dress, but you can't tell. But there's not a lot of detail in this. Trying to see how I can get you to see this sweater, maybe like that. You can see it's got a scoop, and my sleeves I knit to my elbow, and I forgot to weave in an end, but I finished this sweater. It is the, hold on, I'm going back on my iPad, sorry about that. It is I called it the black scoop neck tee sweater. It's called the Not So Crazy Stripes tee. Obviously, I didn't do the tee. When I'm looking for a sweater that I like, the first thing I look at is silhouette. Not necessarily all the textures and things that are going on in there. I really liked this sweater because it had a scoop neck tee on it, and it was knit Maybe I'll have to take a picture. Maybe I'll take a picture of this and put it in where you can really see the scoop neck, and then because there's ribbing around the scoop neck, and there's ribbing on the sleeves. Yeah, you can't see any of that. So I'll take a picture and put this into this. This is really hard. But the yarn is by Skeiny Dipping, Cease and Desist, and it's on her merino cashmere base. I think it's called Marrakesh. Yeah, it's called Marrakesh Fingering. I loved knitting with this. I am a black garment wearing person. I plan on knitting one black sweater a year. And this is my second black sweater. I just know that's what I wear the most. Not that, like I said, I've worn that pink tunic probably a dozen times already because I loved it so much. But I really like wearing, especially to work, because for me, when I wear black to work, I feel like I'm ready for anything. I can be comfortable, but still look professional. Not that I don't wear my other knitted sweaters to work that are knit in color, but it's just something that is like my uniform. I grew up going to school in a uniform, so maybe it's just ingrained in me, and it helps me. I'm not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination. Any of you know who have been around me in the morning will know that. I will knit one black sweater a year. That's sort of like my, so that I'm not only knitting black sweaters, because that's not the only thing I want to knit. I think there are so many beautiful colors of yarn out there, and you'll see the sweaters I'm knitting on now are not black. But I plan on knitting one black sweater a year, just because in my personal wardrobe, that's all I have. I don't even have a gray sweater. I only have black sweaters in my ready-to-wear sweater wardrobe. So I know I really enjoyed this. So I really like the silhouette. If you go to Alpha Knit's pattern page, there are a ton of ways people have knit up this sweater based on the silhouette and have made it their own. There's one on there that is, she did this, there's one woman put this rib on, which sort of hits just under the bust in the torso area, where she used two colors. It looks like brioche, but it's not. And I really liked that detail, and I will definitely be making another version of this sweater. Probably not in black, because I already own one in black in this, but the other thing I'm doing is trying a bunch of different sweater patterns out with various types of necklines and construction, etc., to see which ones I like the best. Most of my sweaters will be short sleeve, just because being in an office, it gets really hot in the wintertime, and as much as I would love to have, I have a couple of long sleeve, I own 3 long sleeve wool sweaters, but I have to wear a t-shirt under them to work, because I'm just literally, I get drenched in sweat wearing that inside an office. A worsted weight long sleeve wool sweater, I see why they were made, and the Aran weights for fishermen on the sea, because those things, man, do they keep you warm. So those are the things I'll wear in the deep of winter and under my coat, and those really do keep me warm. But for the most part, I'll be knitting a couple of most of the cardigans probably will be long sleeve, because you have an opening there, and you can open it, taking it on and off. It's much easier than, a pullover. So this was the Not So Crazy Stripes tee by Alpha Knits in Skeiny Dipping, Marrakesh Fingering, and the Cease and Desist colorway. And I haven't worn this yet, and I finished this probably at the end of June, and I am dying to wear this sweater. I cannot wait to wear it. And then the last sweater I have, and this is the last finished object I'm going to show you, it's called the Stopping Out sweater. The purple in it, I'm sure all the color behind me is not helping this, but this is called the Stopping Out sweater, and it's showing up as an eggplant. It's showing up as an eggplanty color, but it's more of a dusty purple. Excuse me again. This I cast on. This is probably one of the first sweaters I cast on, but I put it aside for whatever reason, and I picked it up again this year. It's knit at a really loose gauge. This is a fingering weight sweater, but you knit it on size 8 needles. And it's meant to be a summer sweater. I can't wear it in the summer, but it's a really lightweight. Can you see how much you can see through that gauge there? And let me see if you can see the yoke work detail. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. There, you can see like that. You can see that yoke work detail. I missed a row of the yoke chart. You know, once I realized that I was at the neckline, I wasn't going to go back, but it turned out, and I haven't worn this one yet either, but it's got a lovely sort of like ballet wide neckline, and you can sort of see what it's going to look like. And it looks really variegated, like the white's really popping out on screen, but that's only the contrast of the camera. In person, it's much more subtle. It's not white. It's like the light purple gray and then the dark. So you can see the real color on my project page. But the yarn I used is Manos del Uruguay fingering in the amethyst colorway. And yeah, this is one of the first, this is probably one of the first sweater quantities of yarn I bought back in 2015. And I got the sweater. Now you can see I knit this one long sleeve. And I said I wouldn't be doing that, but this I did because the gauge was so loose. And that's another thing I'm working on. The black sweater I knit on US size 4s, and it's got a really light drapey gauge to it. And the next sweater, one of the next sweaters I'm going to show you, I'm doing in 3s just to see which one I like better, because it's just based on testing it out for myself. I initially started using 4s for all my fingering weights, but I'm trying 3s just to see how. I'm a really loose knitter. Honestly, I could go down to a size 2 to get the gauges people want for a sweater and fingering weight, but I'll tell you right now, I'm not going down to 2s to knit a fingering weight sweater. The least I'll go down is a 3, and if I have to, I'll just go down a size to get the fit I want. But this was knit on 8s, and I really enjoyed this sweater too. I really like the pictures on the project page really do it justice more than I'm showing you here. But it was a fast knit. I knit this in a month, and I am not a fast knitter. I had, when I picked this up again this year, I had maybe 2 inches cast on, and it got put aside, and I finished this in a month. And that included sleeves and everything. And normally it takes me forever, you know, to knit something. So I'm really happy with the sweaters that I got finished so far this year. Okay, so I'm just looking, and I've got everything. Oh, Cozy Memories blanket right there. I finished that when I had my back surgery. That project right there is what got me through my back, being off from work. I wanted to knit, and that was so nice and simple. It's just a little square. I could pick it up and down. You know, I wasn't knitting a lot on it, but that's the project. I finished it. I think I finished it during my, when I was on disability. But that is the project that got me through my back surgery. And I absolutely love it. It is by far, As much as I love wearing my sweaters and my socks and everything, I use that blanket all the time. It is my favorite thing I have ever knit. I love curling up with it. When I wasn't feeling good with my back, I would just curl up with that thing, and it would just make me feel better. I had to sleep in that chair right there for probably 2 weeks because I wasn't able to lay flat. And I have a little ottoman I put my feet up on, but that's also a special chair. It cants back more than a regular side chair does. So it doesn't look like it's comfortable, but it is the most comfortable side chair, living room chair you will ever find. And I don't know what I would have done without that chair, because I curled up in that chair with that blanket. I think I finished that blanket right before surgery or right after. It was something like that, but I love that blanket. I love it. I'll show you, I'm making one for my niece and I'll make one for my nephew, but I'll show you that coming up. So what I'm working on now, I am knitting on a pair of socks, but these are for a gift. I went through some things this summer, and my friend really helped me through them. And so I'm making a pair of Hermione's Everyday Socks in a gray for them. And yeah, this is where I am. I'm going to try to go through this a little bit faster because we're at 45 minutes and I have so much to tell you about. And if you've paused or left, I get it. But I'm just going to keep going in case you want to see things and see what's going on. And I figure this is my first time back coming, and it's going to be jibber jabbery. But, you know, the Hermione Everyday Sock, I got a little Hedwig Progress Keeper. This was, I don't know who I got this from. It was either Pitter Patter or Sucre Sucre Miniatures, one of them, but it's the little Hedwig Progress Keepers. And I don't know if you can tell already, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. So I've got that, and I am knitting that on Lolo Did It. Lolo Did It. I hand wound this. Every once in a while, I know a lot of people don't like hand winding yarn, but sometimes there's just days when I just want to sit there and just wind a ball of yarn. I know people are going to think I'm crazy for that, but there is something very soothing to me about it, about just sitting there and making a hand wound ball of yarn. So this is Lolo Did It. It is in her, I know the color is Coal Miner's Daughter, but I think it's her sock. I'm pretty sure it's her sock base. I can't remember which one it is, but it's Lolo Did It. And you can see how I do my socks with my needles. So here's the Haya Haya in the 1, and you can see my Chaogu 0. So I have 32 stitches on the front needle, 32 stitches on the back needle, and you can see I'm starting to increase for the heel stitches right there. I just started increasing for the heel stitches. And I have everybody's, I don't hand knit for a lot of people. There are about, outside of my family, my immediate family, I make stuff for my godmother and then 2 friends who I've had forever, and who are always there, support me and stuff. And so those are the people I knit for. So, and I have all their measurements, and I've made them things before. So I have their recipe written down. And this is in, don't ask me, I'd have to look on my Etsy, but I got this, I love this sock sack. This is the sack I usually keep. Excuse me. This is the sack I usually keep in my purse. The reason I like this one, I really like my other sock sacks too, but it can fit my sock ruler in it. And it always seems that it's when I'm out, that I'm somewhere and I'm like, I don't know where I am. And, you know, I need to measure. So, but this fits it in there nicely, and you can see it's one of those bags you go like this, and you do that, and it just squishes up really small, fits in my bag, and I have what I need, and nothing ever falls out of it. So if you're wondering if this closure keeps it. It does. I keep stitch markers in here, a regular tape measure, my yarn, my sock, and the sock ruler in there. So, and then obviously this is always home, so if I need the sock ruler, I just go and get it out of this bag for another pair of socks I'm working on. Okay, what is the next thing? Okay, this is coming out of, sorry I'm looking down, I'm looking at my, I handwritten my, wow, I don't know. I wrote my notes for the show by hand, and I had an outline for myself because I hadn't done this for so long and I didn't want to forget anything, and I knew this was going to be a really long podcast coming back, just because I wanted to go through once coming back on this first go around to show you what I had on my needles, and going forward I'll probably be doing this podcast once a month to start with. I'll see how I'm feeling and what my back will allow me to do. So I'm saying that I will be here once a month from now on, but not everything you see today will be shown on every podcast. So this is coming out of serious deep hibernation. And I'm glad that I put this in hibernation when I did, because I started these when I was a new sock knitter, and I've been making socks for, this is my 4th year being a knitter with capital N. So I've been doing socks that I think successfully and what I would say well for 2 years now. So I probably put these socks in hibernation about 2 years ago, and I'm glad that I did, because these will turn out way better waiting for them than they would have if I'd done them before. Not that they wouldn't have been nice, but they'll turn out and fit better than they would have before, because I understand sock construction. I understand how elastic sock yarn can be, how it fits, and how I understand my gauge better on how to make these. So this is just a vanilla sock. Now, what is going to be different about these is these are for my sister-in-law, and there's a little bit of gusset increases. I used an OMG heel on these by Megan Williams. You can see it just really, I haven't tried her spacious OMG, which I might try, and might not have to do as many gusset increases. I don't know what the difference is, but not soon, but I'd like to try that. But the regular OMG heel works really well for everybody I knit socks for. And the one good thing is that my sister-in-law and I wear the exact same size shoe. It's just that she doesn't have a high instep like I do. So I can try these on and see that, you know, how they're fitting, etc. So I had knit all the way up just past, I had knit all the way up just past the heel on both of these socks. You can see where I stopped on this one. This is where I stopped on both socks. So I knit the foot and the heels, and I was confident in that. But she wanted these to be over the knee socks. And I said I'd do it. I know those are really long, but she's a really wonderful woman, mother, sister-in-law, friend, just a really special human being who deserves all this woolly goodness. And she gets cold really easily. And so, and I know I knit her a sweater already, I know, but she loves it. And she gets compliments on it all the time. And she's always gets asked if I'll make them a sweater. And she likes to say, nope, just for me. And, you know, because it's something really special, and everybody thinks that she bought it somewhere where, you know, that they, you know, that I hand, and she so proudly says that I hand knit it for her, and it's, you know, just for her. So she's just an absolutely wonderful human being. And so I can try on the socks for me. So if there's ever a sock that I knit that is too tight in the instep, I know immediately I can give her those socks and that they'll be worn and she'll appreciate them. and they'll fit her because we wear the same size shoe. So this is where I had stopped about 2 years ago on these socks. And this sock is, it's Miss Babs, and then I know it's the Mad Hatter colorway. I can usually remember the colorways on all my different socks. It's just the bases I have a hard time remembering. It's Hot Shot. So this is the Miss Babs Hot Shot base, and I've probably knit 3 or 4 pairs of socks out of her Hot Shot base, and I've really enjoyed knitting the socks on that, socks out of that. I'm not hard wearing on my socks, so I even have sock yarn put away that's 100% wool. Like I said, I don't wear my socks. I mean, I wear them a lot, and it's when they're clean, as soon as they're clean or they're available, because I also hand wash all of my knitwear, because I have to send my laundry out. We don't have a washer and dryer in the building I live in, and I can't carry any more laundry back and forth to the laundromat. So I know anything that's hand knit will never be put in a washer or dryer. So for me, it's a no-brainer for me to knit something in 100% wool. It doesn't have to be superwash even, because it'll never go in a washer or dryer. But if I'm gifting it, it'll always be superwash, because I don't want someone to accidentally forget, because it happens, you know. You throw something in, you say don't put it in the wash, and then, you know, accidentally it gets put in there. One of my brother's hats actually got thrown in the wash, and when I say Brittany's extremely careful with the hand knits, it just got caught up in there. I mean, stuff happens, and I just knit him another one. I said, she was really upset and afraid to tell me, but I was like, it's no big deal, it's life, you know. Come on, it's a hat, it was knit, you know, nobody's limb fell off, you know, I'll just make another one. But but, you know, in case something like that happens, I don't want someone to be upset or feel bad that they told me that they, you know, felted something either. You know, I felt so bad too that she was afraid to tell me, and I was like, please don't ever feel that way. And we got that cleared up, so she doesn't worry about that anymore. So this is where it was. This is where I've gotten to since I've pulled it out, and what I've done is I'm starting just to rib up the back, do a 1x1 rib so it's really stretchy. So it either, because she has very slender calves, and probably up to a certain point we have the same sort of ankle circumference measurement, but my calves get a lot bigger than hers do. So what I'm doing is, since there's so much stretch in this, I figured out the gauge, I figured out what it would be to be, based on mathematical calculations, I should get to 50 stitches on, 48 to 50 stitches on each needle. I don't think that's going to be necessary, because as I'm trying this on and I'm seeing how the yarn is stretching and moving, and since I'm putting in this ribbing in the back, I don't think I'm going to have to go up that much. I've increased 2, 4, 6, so this was 32. So I increased, and I started, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I started with just, you know, 2 purls and a knit for the rib, and then I increased and added a purl and a knit for the ribbing. So now I have, it's a 1x1 rib, and now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 6. So the ribbing going across is 12 stitches, but, you know, 6 ribs. And I'm going to continue in that fashion for a little bit, and then I will probably pause on these again and save it for the next time I see her and have her try this on and see how it's fitting. Because I don't want to get all the way up to the knee and it either be too baggy, falling down, or, you know, I wanted these to fit. They're over the knee socks, and I don't know the next time I'm going to make over the knee socks for her again. And I don't want to have to rip out all that ribbing. So I'm going to go probably another 2 or 3 inches on these, and they will go in hibernation again until I see her, and then I will have her try them on, and we'll just keep slowly going with that on those. And then here is the yarn in a cake, and it's a little beat up because it's been sitting in a bag in hibernation in that right back, yeah, hold on, right there is where I put all my hibernation knitting, is right in that little woven bin basket. I'm not sure what you call it. It's not made of wood, so, but it's woven. All right, the next thing is, this is the big thing that I cast on this week. I have been wanting this sweater for a really long time. I've been wanting to knit this yarn for a really long time. Just other things kept getting put in front of it. But I'm calling this my zombie prom sweater. And the sweater, the pattern is, I'm going to try not to do this next time, but have everything written out. It's called the Move Sweater by Anka Strick. And this is at least the third sweater, definitely the second pattern I've made by her, maybe the second pattern by her, but it's the Move Sweater. And I'll put pictures of all these sweaters up in as I'm talking about them, even the ones that I finished, but definitely all of the sweaters I'm knitting, I will put the pattern picture up so that you can see what it's supposed to look like, because even I have all these lights on, I knit with such dark yarns, it's hard to see stuff. And this one isn't that far along. So what you're looking at is the front, and I haven't, and these are, so what you're seeing here, that's the back. This will scoop down like at this length, like this dress is. So it will be like this, and you can see I've started for the sleeve caps on this side, and I've started increasing, and I've finished the ribbing for the front because it doesn't go all the way down. It's just sort of a feature at your bust line. And I've started on the solid part. And this is made out of Miss Babs Yowza. This is the second time I'm making a sweater out of her Yowza. I made a long sleeve, and this is considered a DK light worsted. But this sweater is designed to be short sleeve, and I'll be knitting any worsted weight sweaters for sure. Again, I'll be making short sleeve, but you can see how it's knitting up. And the camera is just not doing the colors justice. I'm sure my wall color doesn't help either for color. Maybe I'm going to have to pick a different place to podcast now that I have color on my walls rather than that, because it's going to throw these colors off. But it's not that the colors are so different, it's just that the saturation level that the camera is showing on these is vastly different than what they really are. Like the purple isn't as saturated, and the dark is, it's a dark, but it's not absent of color like it's showing it was black there. It's really more of a very dark, like coal gray. And then the white isn't white, it's more of a light gray. And it's got, so really what this color is, I don't know if the sleeves will show it any better, but that's sort of like it's not the color, but that's sort of the disbursement. And this has like an olive green, a really light gray, two tones, two maybe three tones, and they're more like berry purples, so it's a red purple, and then it goes into like a dark blue purple, like a more of a violet. And there's also bits of like where the gray meets the olive green, it sort of has these golden colors in it. It's an absolutely beautiful skein colorway. Miss Babs Yowza, and that's a little bit closer in the skein, showing what it is. Or I'm sorry, the cake. So you can see how big it is. And I have 2 skeins, which will be enough for me for this sweater. And I don't even know. I'll start alternating skeins once I get past the separating for the sleeves. I'll start alternating skeins because I'd like to leave a little bit, at least anyways, a little bit of this original skein for the when you pick up the sleeves, so it matches and there's not a line. So this is, I'm really excited. This is only maybe 3-4 days worth of work on this. So yeah, and I'm increasing for the body and the sleeves right now on that project. I think I'm telling you everything. Oh, and I'm knitting that on US 7. So I normally, I'd bring it back, but I tossed it on the chair over there. Usually I'd go down a size, but like I said, I'm trying to test my gauges out, see how loose or tight a gauge I want on my sweaters, what I enjoy, what feels good to me, because I don't really want a stiff sweater, but I don't mind a drapey sweater. So the pattern says use a 7. I'm liking the stitch definition and pattern that I'm getting. I like the gauge. I probably should have gone down to a 6 or a 5, so I did go down a size. I would have knit the extra large sweater size, but I'm knitting the large, and that'll probably work out perfect size-wise, but we'll find out when I finish it. And I'm hoping to have it finished within by November. That's sort of my goal. And then let me show you, I'm calling this my after party tunic. So I'm making another tunic like I did the pink one I showed you earlier. Different pattern, different yarn, but same length, because I really like wearing that. I really like wearing it to work. I enjoy the length I had of it, so I really wanted another one. And then I have 3 skeins of this duck wool, and it has a really big, do I have the tags in here? Of course I don't. Anyways, I haven't been showing my project bags, but this is the Erin size bag from from Fat Squirrel Speaks. I got this at Needles Up last year, which I'm not going to Needles Up or Rhinebeck this year, but that's okay. You know, next year. I'll just spend the week knitting and watching you guys all on Instagram and stuff like that. So I'm excited about that. So this isn't that far. I kind of got stalled on this. I don't know why now that I have it out, but once again, once I separate for the sleeves, I'll start alternating skeins. But it is joined in the round, and this is the pattern is the Park Slope Tee, and the yarn is duck wool. I can't remember the base. This is actually one of this yarn I bought at my very first Rhinebeck in 2015. So these are the different progress keepers I have going on here, and I really liked. This was a different type of construction for me. Top down. I'm not going to go into it, but you can see you pick up things, and it's going to be a V-neck. It looks scoop neck now, but it'll be a V-neck sweater. It's called the Park Slope Tee, and it's by Laura Ayler. And let's see if I have a. Oh, this is merino silk fingering base. So I'm pretty good. I'm good at putting stuff on my project page in Ravelry, because writing stuff down everywhere else, and if I have to type it in the computer, then I might as well type it there rather than anywhere else. It's just the same difference, you know, and I can just keep everything there. And if somebody wants to see what I did, they can see it, and it's not locked away on, you know, my personal computer. It's there for everybody to see. So typing it in Ravelry or typing it in an Excel sheet is the exact same thing for me, because I am not a fan of Excel by any stretch of the imagination. So, oh, I can show you some of the, oh, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. So I am a little bit of a list nut. So I did, you won't be able to see too much of this, but I have a sweater queue, and all these in dark gray are ones that I've finished already. And these are a couple that I've been wanting to make, will be put together next year. And the reason there's this tape on this is because the staples I use, I work at an architectural firm, and I couldn't use a regular stapler on this because the paper was too thick, and I used one of the staplers they use to put together construction sets on, and I used too long a staple length, so I had to protect my fingers from the staples. But anyways, I have this big long, this is something that I do differently than I have stuff in, I do have a queue in Ravelry, but I can't order it the way that I want to in Ravelry. So the queue is something that I do use, but I make my own queue because I have them separated out in, I know you can order them that way, but there's other things in there that I want to make too. And this is just for sweaters. Like, I have them organized just by fingering weight, and then short sleeve, and I have marked in here. And I know you can do all that in Ravelry, but I really don't feel like typing all of that in there, and I can make adjustments. I use InDesign every day, so for me, InDesign is way easier to do it. And I can color code stuff. You can see I've color coded stuff and highlighted places where, like, you know, I already have the yarn for this sweater, and, you know, I know that I'm going to want this for this. And so it's just for that, that is one thing that I don't do in Ravelry. I create my own sweater queue. But yeah, I'm really liking this. Again, this is, I'm knitting this one on US 3s. And you can still see that, I don't know if you can tell, you can't tell, but it's still a loose gauge for me. Although I like the stitch definition that I'm getting on this a lot. But it's still a loose gauge for me, even on size 3s. When I say I'm a loose knitter, I'm an extremely loose knitter. I know a lot of people say they knit loosely, but I take that statement to a whole another level. So you can see even on 3s, I'm not getting a tight gauge, but that's fine. You know, I don't want this to stand out by itself. I want this to be comfortable and flowy, and that's sort of what I wear anyways. I wear a lot of, maybe not necessarily to work, but mostly flowy things. I don't like anything super fitted. You know, I don't mind if it's knit and it contours to my body, but I will never wear, I can't say never, I don't like saying never, but I most likely will not put on a button-down shirt again. I just don't like them. I don't like the way they look on me. I don't like the way they fit. I don't feel comfortable in them. They always come untucked. You know, once it gets wrinkled, it looks messy. So I don't even own one. I don't remember the last time I owned one, probably 10 years ago. So I rarely, you know, if there's some reason I'd have to buy one, then I'd go buy one, but I don't see that happening in the near future. But once again, once I get past the connect for the sleeves, this bunched up, you can't even see it. But anyways, once I get past the sleeves, you know, take the sleeves off, I'll start alternating. And again, I want to make this in to a tunic length, only because I think the yarn lends itself better to a tunic length than a sweater length, if that makes any sense. Maybe just to me and a couple other people, but I think it's going to look better as a tunic rather than stopping at the waist and being a sweater. So I made that decision. The only thing I'm changing in the pattern is the length. So I have my measurements from a garment I've already made and similar weight yarn. And I'll just, I think I made that one, I think it went down to 22 inches, maybe 24 inches, something like that, past the sleeve is where I ended it, because I think it ends, it's definitely past my butt, that's for sure, because I definitely wouldn't wear leggings without my butt covered. So, and it has to be at least 4 or 5 inches past my butt. So whatever that is, I think I did that 24 inches past the underarm of the sleeve, 22 to 24. So, you know, and you just go round and around, and I'll do the same on the reason this tee is called the Park Slope tee is that there's a ribbing that goes on an incline. So it's like, you know, so here's the bottom of the ribbing, and then this ribbing goes up like this in a triangle, and it goes around. That's why it's called the Park Slope tee, because the ribbing slopes up. And I'll do that on the bottom of this tunic. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with this. I'm loving working with the yarn. This is a little bit more variegated of a yarn than I typically knit with, but I think it's really fun, and it's really quite beautiful, the juxtaposition of all these colors. And for the black, I mean, this is showing pretty true to color. And yeah, I'm really happy to get this going. I've been, like I said, I've had this yarn for 3 years now, so I'm happy to be knitting with this. Like I said, I'm really, really enjoying knitting from stash. I wouldn't have bought any of this yarn if I didn't like it. I mean, I want to knit with it, and so yeah. So that is the Park Slope tee in Duck Duck Wool After Party. The next thing, sorry if this is like, I know we're at an hour and 15 minutes or so, and I have a few more, I have 4 or 5 more projects to go through. So the next thing I'm going to show you are my Sunset Highway sweater. So this will be the last of the sweaters. I have 3 sweaters on the needles. This one's probably going to go into hibernation for a little bit, because working on those 2 other sweaters, and then I have a couple things I'd like to do for Christmas and stuff like this. But this is where I am. I work on this intermittently, like every so often. I'll get a need to work on the color work, and I really like doing color work. It's just that I'm making this long sleeve, and did I decide to make it long sleeve? I've been vacillating back and forth on this being long sleeve, because it's going to be really warm with the color work. So I don't know if I want to make it short sleeve or long sleeve. So I guess I'll eventually come to that conclusion when I need to. So I'm not worried about it, but I keep going back and forth. But this is where I am on the Sunset Highway. And I am, let's see, where are we? Yeah, this is the back. This is the back, because there's the short rows. So I made the neckline a little bit larger than suggested, which will work out, because I know a lot of people who made it had some tight issues, and I never want a sweater to be right here. And sorry, I dropped something and it's distracting me, and I need to stop worrying about it. So let me tell you what I'm making this out of. So I have finished the first part of the color work where those arrows are, and you can see I've started on the second part of the color. Now, This is more green. This is showing up really like limoncello yellow, but it's more green than yellow. So that's the next part that's going in here. So that's what's going in there next. And that color is called Golden Ticket. Even though it's called Golden Ticket, it's definitely a yellow-green rather than a green-yellow. If that makes sense. And this is by Shirsty Cat. I got this a couple years ago at Vogue Knitting Live. And it is on her Just Sock base. And then the blue, well, the white blue, you can see it looks really white. That's what so this, wow, you know, you really do need 3 arms, is the white in this. And then, do I have all the, really not good at things. Okay. So that is, this blue-white variegated is by Skein. And it is in her Classy Sock 4-ply. And it is, what color is it? Phosphorescent. And then I'm pretty sure the blue was Magpie Fibers. Pretty sure it's Magpie Fibers in her Tide Pool colorway. Anyways, I'm almost 100%. That's the color that is. And then what the main body is going to be is this gray color. And that's pretty close to the gray that it should be. And this is from Stranded Dye Works. And the color is Highway Code. So this is definitely something that I don't have anything like this in my repertoire, in my sweaters. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. So here are the 4 colors this will be. So that's my Sunset Highway sweater. And like I said, I intermittently work on it here and there. And but for now, it's probably going to go into a bit of hibernation. I've been knitting on this since last November, so you can see I don't work on it very much, and been putting my efforts into some other things. I have to bend down and get with my next thing. So it's not like I don't have enough stuff that I'm working on. Technically, I have more projects on the needles than what I'm showing you, and I'm just showing you 8. But I'm working on an exploration station. So I'm stalled on this too, and I'll tell you why. So the colors that I'm using is, this is Homespun House, Xenophilius Lovegood Describes the Deathly Hollows. This is, which I'm going to be, I don't know if I'm going to rip it out, but this is like a blue, yeah, this is a blue, green, gray color, and I just do not like how it's going with this. Now this color is turning out to be really green, but it's not. This color is called I Heart Daryl by Lolo Did It, and the colorway, let me see if you can see it in the skein, has a much more beachier, sand dune-y feel to it. It has, for me, what I think of as beachy colors, because it's got this really pretty blue-green, has different blues, greens in it, it's got golds in it, and what I'm going to end up doing is I'm waiting for it, is I did order an olive green to go in here. So I don't know if I'm necessarily going to rip out these few areas of the blue-green that's in there. I don't know if you can really see it, but And then I just might end up just working in that olive green because I've ripped this out 3 times. So I had another color in here, and I've mixed things around. And I knew it should be olive green, but I was trying not to buy yarn and using stuff in my stash, but there's just no reason to knit something if you're never going to wear it and you don't like it. So I knew I don't like those colors together. And so this blue color here is Hedgehog Fibers Budgie. And where's the other color? Oh, I showed you I Heart Daryl. Lolo did it, I Heart Daryl. Hedgehog Fibers Budgie. And Homespun House, Xenophilius of Goods, talks about the Deathly, explains the Deathly Hallows. So, and then I'll have an olive green. So this is, again, this one is on hold as well too. That's a better representation. So I really wanted a beachy sort of flow to this, where you go to that really dark Caribbean blue, and then you sort of have like the, you know, the dune area with all the golds and those olive greens in it. And then you have this sort of sandy color. And then the olive green will just tie all of that together. And so that's what so I'm on hold on that right now. But that's where I am. And this is my 3rd iteration on this. So once that, and what I ordered was Madeline Tosh Euro Sock in the Joshua Tree colorway. So when I get that in and I work that in, and the next time I talk to you, I will tell you. And I can't remember. And then I'm knitting it in the size needles they tell you. I called it the Sea Nature Exploration Station on my page, and I am using, I don't even know what I'm using, and I'm not going to even try to look. I know I used the needle that he said. I didn't even put it in my project page, which I'm usually pretty good about. Okay, the next thing is, these I want really bad for this winter. And I stopped and cast on a whole bunch of other stuff last year, and I cast these on. And I love them, and I love the yarn I'm using, but this is the moth mitts. And I don't, and this is a little project keeper from a homespun house from like 3 years ago. They used to be zipper tabs on her old project bags. I love this project keeper. I absolutely love it. I'm not a big, well, maybe you can tell from the socks, but it has to be really, really cold for me to put gloves on. I'll never wear mittens. I can't do anything in mittens. And all I'm going to do is pull them off and lose them. And I don't wear the gloves I wear, but at least I can do stuff in the gloves. So these moth mitts will be perfect for me because my hands will stay warm, and I'll still be able to do things. But they won't be too warm because I mean, in the winter, I'm like on and off with the gloves. And I'm using my same technique that I'm using. You can tell these have been in here. Look at this mess. That's just a mess. So what this is supposed to help me keep. It's just a bread tie. I don't know if you've seen them on the other ones I have, but some woman years and years ago, I mean like at least 10 years ago, had one of these. I'm like, what you do? And she uses bread ties to use as a yarn bobbin for that, your cast on, if you use a long tail cast on and you have that really long, sorry, I'm untwisting, this is rude, but when you have that really long tail cast on, and I always like to leave that long length just either for weaving in the end or just to have that extra. And so there you go, I got it untangled. So it's supposed to, so what you do is that you just use it like a regular bobbin. And so I just keep several around, and normally when you're not throwing things around, it pretty much keeps your yarn tidy. You know, you just put it on there, and you're recycling, and you're using a piece of plastic that's, not going to get junked away somewhere. But I really, really like the yarn I'm using on these. I like the stitch definition I'm getting on these. So, surprise, black. They're for gloves or mittens. There was just no other. And then this is like a mauvey, taupey color. Do I have? Let's see. I probably put. I'm terrible with sock. Any kind of yarn tags. I have a plastic bag where I just throw them in case I need to go back. But okay, so I'm knitting them out of Knit Picks Gloss Fingering is the black, and I really like this yarn. It has a little bit of a halo to it. I'm gonna have to figure. I don't know how good this camera is at picking this stuff up. I'm just using my webcam from my iMac, and I really want to try a sweater out of this Knit Picks Gloss Fingering. I love the way it feels. It is, one skein is about 50 grams, so they're 50-gram skeins. This is Woolen Vine Taiga, and it's in her Volca base, and I love this color, and it's super soft, and these just, these are just such a perfect marriage. I love the colors. I love the stitch definition I'm getting. I'm getting a beautiful contrast, and the color work is just, or the stranded knitting color work is turning out beautifully, and you can just see the floats are just, I couldn't be happier with this. These feel like 1s or 2s, maybe 1s and 0s. They're either 2 1s from the feel of them, the diameter. It either feels like a 1. I don't think it's a 2. I think they're both 1s. I think I'm knitting these on US 1s. And it looks like a 24-inch cable. And so this is another, these are the other sock or small project bags that I use. And again, both of these are from Stash. I bought the Taiga from Woolen Vine last in spring of 2017, but this is the other type of sock sack that I like. So those are the two that I use the most. And this is from Slip Stitch Studios. Oops. Okay, I'm getting down to the last two projects. So this is in a little Woolen Vine bag, which I love. This is like, look at that fabric. Love this bag. So what's in here is, these are my long-term projects. And I don't know the next time that you'll be seeing these, but maybe after I finish, this I might show after I finish a skein. So I've already finished one skein of gray yarn in this, and I'm on my second ball. And it's not quite my wingspan, and it's not as big. And I purposely did not make it as big as my Cozy Memories blanket. I wanted something a little bit smaller. That blanket there will fit across that entire bed and hang over. So that there would probably fit a queen size bed. That I made, I want to say it's either 12 by 12 squares, and each square is about 5 inches, 5 by 5. I cast on 32 inches on each side. Yeah, 32 stitches on each side, so 64 stitches. And I knit those on a US 4. And I'd say it's either 11 or 12 wide, and then it's definitely 12 long. I definitely know it's 12 long, and it's either 11 or 12 wide. But this is definitely not going to be as big. and I wanted to be more Afghan size rather than bed blanket size. So, I'm just little by little, I'll go through a week. So this is the it's called the Granny Stripe blanket, and it's by Attic 24. It took me a while to get this. I hadn't crocheted since I was probably like 9. So my mom taught me to crochet when I was 9. I really didn't like it. I really wanted to learn to knit. She thought knitting would be too hard. I don't know why, because for me, knitting is way, way easier. I understand it. There's just way easier. I think for me, crocheting is harder than knitting. But I finally got the flow of it, and I am using I don't even know what's on here. Maybe a 3.5 millimeter. Sorry, it's like, yeah, I'm using a 3.5 millimeter hook. And I just got these on Amazon, and I liked it because I first started I didn't really want to invest in crochet items, and I was just using the metal. But let me tell you, these ones with the grippy handles are definitely the way to go. So I got a set on Amazon, and then I bought one tulip one. But, if I do more crochet, then I'll get into it. But I'm loving this blanket. I try to do a row a week. And as I get through the balls of yarn, so this I got from Webs, their Valley yarn. It's in the Charlemont base, and it is 60% superwash merino, 20% silk, 20% polyamide. But it's really affordable yarn. And what I think I'm going to do, initially I was going to do hot pink and fluorescent yellow and fluorescent pink stripes with this. But what I think I changed my mind since then. And, as we're wont to do. And so I'm going to keep this dark gray, and I'm going to get a light gray. And then this base has a really beautiful purple that's sort of similar probably to the purple that's on that blanket that's showing on screen. What it looks like in real life isn't the same, but what it looks on screen is the other purple. And so I'm going to do stripe those in somehow, like maybe do 4 rows of the light gray, 2 rows of the purple, and then, but I want most of it to be this dark gray colorway. I really like this dark gray colorway. For crocheting, I think this yarn would be great to knit with. But crocheting, I'm finding it's a little splitty. But that could be my lack of expertise or skill in crocheting. I don't crochet that often, but I do enjoy making this blanket a lot. And again, it's one of those things I just pick up every once in a while. And since I've had so much stuff going on in needles lately, and I have some things that I want to get done for Christmas, it's got put on the back burner. And I really wanted to finish some socks. The last 2 pairs of socks I showed you, the modern striped socks, took me like 5 months to make. And I wanted to get that off the needles and things like that. So then the very, very last project I'm going to show you is my Cozy Memories blanket for my niece. And I've just started this. That blanket I think took me 2.5 years to make. And so, I just want this done by the time she graduates from high school. And she's 10, so I have plenty of time before that gets done. But here it is so far. I'm going to make this 9 squares wide by 11 squares, so 99 squares. That's where I am on this. And I would probably have mixed it up more like I did my own, but I'm making one for my nephew too. And as much as I know some purple being in there and things like that won't bother him, and orange, and my niece is like me, she likes a lot of pink and purple, so I definitely know there will not be any complaints with the colorways I have going on now. But so this is what I have done so far. And I probably work on this more than I do my crochet blanket. Just because for some reason I just get so much joy working on these little squares. And this square I'm working on here is from mini skein that was from my advent calendar from Sweet Sparrow Yarns last year. And, you know, just putting that in there and making this for my niece is just, and I can't wait to give it to her. And, you know, my niece loves everything I knit, everything. So, and then this is the next color it's going in there, and I love it. It's all tweedy and nubby, and this too was a mini skein from my advent calendar from Sweet Sparrow last year. And then I have this just in this came as a travel bag for like makeup and stuff, but I'm using it as a project bag, and it's perfect, you know, for it. And then I just have inside there so they don't get tangled up. I have a bunch of these, I had to do gifts or something a while back, and I have a whole bunch of mesh bags. So what I did was when I finished my Cozy Memories blanket, I pulled out all my minis that I had in a big, I think I had them in a big project bag somewhere. And I sort of started divvying things out. Like you can see what's going to be going in there next. And I made socks out of these. And I made socks out of these. I made my Madewell out of that. I made a sweater out of this purple yarn. This went in my Cozy Memories blanket, so it'll go in her Cozy Memories blanket. So, you know, stuff like that. And I knit my Cozy Memories blanket. I'm pretty sure this is a 4. It's a 3 or a 4. And I just do the double decrease down the middle. And what I do to make picking up stitches easier for the Cozy Memories blanket is I slip my last stitch on every row so that when I'm going through to pick up stitches, it's like a breeze. You just come here and you just catch that loop. Oh, sorry, you can't see. You just come through and you just catch that little loop there, and it's like a cinch to pick up those stitches, and you can see what a nice join you get. Oh, you're seeing the back side, so that doesn't really help either. You can see the nice join you get, and let me tell you, this blanket keeps you toasty. Now, I'm a warm person by nature. Now, not to say that I want to run around in -10-degree Fahrenheit weather, but this blanket really keeps you warm. I really enjoy it. It's something nice to snuggle up with. It brings me a lot of happiness, and I know that my niece is going to absolutely love it. All right. I was going to talk about books and some other things going on in my life, but I am at 1 hour and 43 minutes. So I think that's enough of me coming back, but I'm going to end this here. I will bring in some of my notes from my other things that I haven't talked about. I've been reading a lot. I haven't been watching that much TV. I've read quite a few books this year, and some really good ones that I will share with you. I've been cooking again. I couldn't cook when I had my back problems, so I've been cooking again, and just hanging out. And thank you all for checking me out if this is your first time. Thank you guys who are coming back to see me from my long, I'm calling it my sabbatical or hiatus or whatever you want to talk about it. I will be back in no more than a month. I've really enjoyed sitting here chatting with you. I'm kind of afraid about watching this back to see what I've been saying. I didn't realize I could sit here and talk so long to you, but I've thoroughly missed podcasting. You know, I've really thought about it a lot over especially the last couple of months. And I really wanted just to come back. And so these first few back may be a little wonky or chatty or stream of consciousness until I get my podcasting feet back. But I'm really glad to be back. I'm glad to be talking to all of you. And I've missed being here. I think I've said that like 3 times already. So, happy knitting. I look forward to seeing you all again soon and sharing more with you. And again, I will bring up some other things that I have that I've been interested in the next time I podcast. See you all in about a month, and maybe if I have enough energy, it could be 2 weeks, but definitely no more than 2 weeks. So I'll see you all soon. Bye.